Hey guys, welcome to The Strong Young Man. Reversing type 2 diabetes is crucial if you want to live to a ripe old age. Although diabetes can be caused by too much stress or some medications, for most people, chronically high insulin levels over time is the cause of their type 2 diabetes. Everything that causes type 2 diabetes is a direct result of raising insulin and keeping it high. Note that insulin injections are the worst thing you can do to manage your type 2 diabetes. It just makes the problem worse. If you have type 2 diabetes, all the information presented in today's episode should be discussed and managed with your general practitioner, as injecting insulin when your insulin resistance improves could be fatal. Be sure to get regular blood tests to ensure that you are managing the recovery of type 2 diabetes properly. If you don't have type 2 diabetes yet, it is highly likely that you will develop it if you don't adopt the practices highlighted in today's episode. Please pay attention. This disease is about to be the worst pandemic to ever hit mankind, and it is coming slowly but surely. Step 1. Eliminate gluten. Remove gluten from your diet, even if you are not a celiac. Celiac disease and gluten sensitivity are not the same thing. Just because you don't have an upset stomach from gluten does not mean that you aren't gluten sensitive. Gluten can affect all your organs, including your brain. The main reason to remove gluten from your diet is that the highly processed wheat, rye, spelt, or barley converts to glucose more rapidly than any other starch. The rapid absorption of glucose triggers the pancreas to secrete insulin in order to bring the blood glucose levels down. It does this by shuttling the glucose into the cells of the muscles, brain, liver, and adipocytes. This is a natural hormonal response to having high blood glucose levels. However, having chronically high blood glucose levels will mean insulin levels remain high without periods of low insulin. This will cause insulin resistance over time. Like caffeine resistance, the cells become resistant to insulin's effects to bring down blood sugar. In response to this downregulation, the body releases more insulin to prevent the blood sugar levels from rising to dangerous levels, and this leads to more insulin resistance. This positive feedback loop will eventually lead to type 2 diabetes. Step 2. Eliminate processed carbohydrates. Better than removing gluten is to eliminate all processed carbohydrates altogether. All carbohydrates produced today, including fruit, have been genetically modified and are very different from their wild ancestors. These foods have been modified to be larger, sweeter, and more calorie dense with less fibre that slows the digestion. The more carbohydrates you consume in a day, especially processed carbohydrates without the fibre, the more your insulin is raised. The longer this goes on, the more you develop insulin resistance. Just to be clear, insulin resistance ramps up to the point where you get type 2 diabetes approximately 30 years after the initial onset of insulin resistance. It's best to start reversing the process now, before you acquire type 2 diabetes, because the longer you leave it, the more chance you give yourself of developing one of the terrible conditions mentioned in episode 5. Step 3. Eliminate fructose. This substance is nothing but a poison to the body. Its metabolic pathway closely resembles that of alcohol in the liver. As a consequence, the health implications of long-term fructose consumption are similar to that of alcoholism. You need to start considering fructose as a poison, because it is. The main issue with fructose is that it can't be used by any of our cells as energy. The body sees fructose as a toxin, and hence it sends it straight to the liver to be metabolized. Overconsumption of fructose means that the liver is overloaded trying to metabolize the fructose. Like having high glucose levels in the blood develops insulin resistance, having high fructose levels in the blood develops insulin resistance but on a larger scale. The reason it's a bigger problem is because you have one small organ trying to metabolize a large volume of fructose. The liver will do its best to manufacture fat from the fructose as fast as it can, but a large consumption of fructose over a short period of time will mean that the insulin needs to be raised higher and higher to force the fructose into the liver to be metabolized. High fructose consumption, even only over a short period of time, can lead to insulin resistance in the liver very, very quickly, and the accelerated formation of type 2 diabetes will ensue. Lastly, fructose does not stimulate the release of the satiety hormone leptin, nor does it suppress the hunger hormone ghrelin, meaning consumption of fructose will lead to overeating. This includes the overconsumption of glucose that the fructose is usually bundled with. Overeating of fructose will also keep blood glucose levels chronically high, leading to insulin resistance in synergy to the insulin resistance caused by the fructose consumption itself. Fruit does have fructose in it, although in small quantities. Ironically, historically fruit was only consumed in the late summer when it ripened, and humans consumed fruit in copious amounts to fatten themselves up for the scarce winter ahead. Small quantities of fruit will do minimal harm, and will not have the same effect as pure fructose, because it comes packaged with the fibre that slows down the digestion. Step 4. Consume carbohydrates with fibre. Fibre, the non-digestible part of food, buffers the effect that the carbohydrates have on your insulin levels. Fibre slows down the rate that the food is digested because the body can't break down fibre in the same way that it can break down other carbohydrates. Fibre also makes you feel fuller faster because it fills the volume of your stomach without giving you any calories. Processed carbohydrates are refined to the point that they take all the fibre and nutrients out of the food, concentrating the glucose. This two-pronged effect will result in rapid glucose absorption, which will lead to a higher insulin secretion. This insulin secretion is experienced at a much higher rate than high-fibre foods, which will contribute to insulin resistance and hence type 2 diabetes. White sugar and white flour cause the greatest increase in insulin levels. In order to reverse type 2 diabetes, you must cut out all processed carbohydrates and limit your consumption of carbohydrates to fibre-rich foods such as vegetables. Step 5. Consume a high-fat, low-carb, moderate protein diet. Fat also buffers the effect of the food you eat on insulin levels through its neuroprotective effect. Fat is essential for combating the state of disease of the body caused by consuming too much carbohydrates. Yes, you heard this right. Healthy fats save your body from the damage that glucose causes to the brain and heart. If you are a doctor, a nurse, or a nutritionist and you refuse to accept this truth, then you are irresponsible and you are part of the problem. Hippocrates would be rolling over in his grave right now. Realise that the information that you learned is wrong and is based off compromised studies that serve to promote certain businesses that make money off carbohydrates. Change your way of thinking to align with the correct information, which has been proven time and time again. This information is not new. It has been available since the book Pure, White and Deadly was released in 1972. Step 6. Intermittent fasting. Meal timing can play just as much of a role in reversing type 2 diabetes as your diet can. All foods raise insulin to some extent. Therefore, the only true way to break the state of high insulin levels when you have insulin resistance is to not eat. Periods of high insulin should always be balanced out by periods of low insulin. Intermittent fasting allows the blood sugar levels to come down to the point that the body is no longer in a state of hyperinsulinemia, which means that insulin resistance cannot develop. This view is contrary to what most people have historically practiced. You must eat regularly to keep your hunger away. But eating frequently does not control your hunger. The hormone ghrelin, which is linked to your circadian rhythm, stimulates hunger. It will be released around the time that you've programmed your body to expect food. By manipulating your meal timing, you will be able to go long periods of time without eating food. If you have enough fat stores, you can go weeks with no food without feeling hungry. The record is 382 days without food. Another myth that the fitness industry preaches is that eating frequently will keep your metabolism high. Eating frequently does not increase your metabolic rate, and eating infrequently does not slow down your metabolic rate. Metabolic rate will only slow down with insulin resistance and prolonged severe calorie restriction. Note that fasting is not the same thing as calorie restriction. Fasting is taking your daily calorie consumption and compressing it into a smaller window of consumption. For example, eating the same food that you eat between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and compressing it to be eaten between 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. Not eating is something that is extremely easy to implement because it is not something that you actively have to do. It's something that you don't do. For more details on fasting, I'm going to give it a dedicated episode because I believe it to be the single most important factor to improving your health and longevity. Final disclaimer. If you have type 2 diabetes, this protocol must be done under a doctor's supervision. Your doctor will need to monitor your health status to ensure that your treatment adapts to your improved health. Thanks for watching today's episode. In episode 11, I'll be talking about sacrifice. Subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when it drops. Catch you then.